You are my linen garment I put on. Lord, you are my linen garment I put on, while I minister to you in the inner court. They shall not gird themselves with anything that causes sweat. They shall not gird themselves with anything that causes sweat. Lord, you are my linen garment I put on. Lord, you are my linen garment I put on, while I minister to you in the inner court. Oh, your garments smell of earth and aloe, of acacia. Oh, your garments smell of myrrh and aloe, of acacia, as I minister to you in the inner.
Well, hello, you mighty, mighty champions out there. How are you? Seriously, how are you? Some of you, I have a strong suspicion, are growing weary of doing what is good. Do you ever wonder why that may be? There's a scripture, mind you, that talks about wearing out people as a wonderful strategy to just smoke them off the face of the earth. You ever consider that? I'm worn out right now. I'm pretty fatigued. I'm tired. I've been working all day on my feet, sweating with my face into the earth, even though it's freezing. It's strange. And I walk around barefoot even in the cold, and I swim in the cold, icy water that's just getting colder every single day. But it's good for my body. Beyond that, I'm fatigued. But that being said, I'm taking great courage in the Sword of the Covenant, because there's some spectacular coincidences. No. Do you know there's no such word in Hebrew for coincidence? That's because it's not a reality. There's no such thing as coincidence. Like, it's a non-reality. There is such thing as conspiracy. And you know what? Tonight, I'm going to talk conspiracy. I'm going to talk conspiracy straight out of the sword that's this big. It's a tremendous sword. Tonight, I'm going to be reading to you guys a fair amount of scriptures all about conspiracies. Because if you didn't know it, there's a conspiracy afoot for your soul. Truly. Like, there's a lot of people that want to traffic in the souls of man. Do you know that? You should know that. Because if you didn't, there's a lot of people that are trying to coerce people into compliance over an issue or many issues that will cost people their souls. And they wouldn't consider it to be something so costly unless they regarded their soul as something precious. That being said, tonight I want to take a minute to read to you guys some words about some human beings, dudes, dudettes, not mythical creatures. Because I think sometimes what happens is when we read the Bible, the Sword of the Covenant, we tune it out like it's not history, like it's not actual reality. You know, many of us grew up in schools, call them prisons of indoctrinations, if you will. Really, you try to go to a school nowadays, it's like a prison where people are walked through in lines, checked, scanned. Maybe I'll roll in some footage here of a school that I saw one time that literally had an entire walled fence around it that looked exactly like a prison for the children, right? To keep them safe. But I always like to remind people, the most comfortable and safest man in the world is in a security place known as a prison, where you're fed, clothed, provided for, everything you need, nourished, sustained, basically protected from the monsters, right? But you're just locked up in there with them potentially. But you're basically the safest guy in the world, right? But you're in a prison. So which would you rather? Would you rather live in a society that is a prison, or would you rather be a free man without the comforts of the society that was offered to you? I'm electing to live my life in such a way, and to lead my family in a path where we are not a comfortable people. My feet hurt so bad, Chelsea is working so ridiculously hard. We're fatigued beyond measure. So was just child rearing. We spent some time sometimes with other families that have young children, and they feel and live their life in such a similar way. You're fatigued beyond measure because just going out to do the basic things is challenging enough, let alone now when you're having to contend with things like putting this over your face. Oh yeah, we're going to be talking a fair about facial issues that are going on out there. Because you know what? I was challenged by a friend of mine back in, I don't know, maybe May, regarding facial things to put upon your face, whether or not you should put cloth over your face in order to go to the store. And he challenged me and basically gave me an opportunity to exercise my muscles of confrontation. And many of you out there are so weak in your ability to confront other human beings or be confronted by other human beings and being forced to wrestle with other humans with the words of your mouth about your convictions, why you do what you do. Other times, there was a time in my younger years of college life where I was studying apologetics. Apologetics was defending your faith. Reference. Swords, yeah, because I love machetes. And every time I think of defending my faith, I think of this. That's what that sword is we're going to read from. But really, the defense of your faith is also all about this. Yes! I'm bringing out bucklers because tonight I'm talking about war elephants. Do you know there's such a thing as war elephants for thousands of years? And they're not the kinds of elephants you're thinking of, like, you know, circus elephants. Some of you guys have seen the nightmaric abuse of elephants that gone to a circus and participated in that tragedy. Some of you guys have seen circus elephants, right? You've seen these things. I'm not talking about those kinds of elephants, you guys. I'm talking about elephants that literally were trained for a decade, at minimum, sometimes 20 years of their life, to just go murder human beings. Okay, with artillery brocade, like an entire platoon of soldiers on their back launching artillery from the back of giant elephants. I'm not talking little elephants. I'm talking 32 human beings on the top of an armored tank elephants and a dudes or single dudes, humans in history, fighting them with stuff like this. Some of them didn't even have swords in their hands when they went and battled tanks like that. And yet they got the victory. Now, in apologetics, my same friend pointed out to me that the use of the word "I apologize" is the same word as apologetics, which is defending your position, right? Defending your faith. But like a lot of people are out there, they'll say things like, "I'm sorry," and they'll use the same phrase, "I apologize," and they're different. They're not the same. And it's important to have specificity in our language, especially when we're dealing with perpetual legal accusations being thrown in our face, right? Many of you need to apologize to other human beings as you learn and practice how to defend your faith, your convictions, meaning you use specific words in kind, respectful ways to defend your position on why you choose to abstain from submitting to a system that is coercing human beings to murder themselves ever so slowly or very rapidly for the sake of convenience or civilization, participating in civilization. You know, like being able to go buy, sell, or trade things. And if you don't submit to that system by covering your face with a mark, then you can't participate in that system. I'm not saying it's necessarily that, you guys. But consider this. He challenged me that my family and I ought to consider trying not to go about with facial coverings for any reason, no matter what. And just try that and exercise that. And you know what? So 6 months ago, my family and I started trying to go about society without that on our face for any reason, anywhere we went. And you know what happened? We got confronted regularly, not all the time, but regularly with people talking to us about stuff that they never would have talked to us about before. And it gave us this opportunity to begin to exercise these muscles that had atrophied and had weakened to such a level that we were impaired, sincerely impaired from the capacity of withstanding, defending somebody attacking us with the sword of their mouth. Reference, the sword of their mouth. Because, like I've shown you guys before, the beauty of this is a buckler. It's a very tiny shield that you can carry on your person. And it can stop a sword. It's amazing. It's made of plastic, and yet it stops swords. and I can chop through trees, literal trees, with one blow with this. But I can't cut my hand off because I have this on it. Now, when you go out there as a set-apart person, which is kind of the whole point of being people who follow the scriptures, the sword of the covenant, being set apart, because Yahuwah is a set-apart Elohim. There's no Elohim like him. There's no other gods on heaven or earth that are like him. He is completely kadosh, set apart, not like the others, right? And he wants his people to be set apart like he is. And when you go out there in public in such a way that people can see your face, it literally shines before people. And you know what? Put olive oil on your face. I challenge you. Put oil upon your face, because it's a commandment to put oil upon your face. Try it. Put olive oil on your face, and it will literally shine. It's beautiful. It becomes radiant. Stop putting poison on your face. Every one of you who's addicted to the gods of vanity, stop putting oil on your face that's made from petroleum and death, or, chemicals that allow you to masquerade like you look like something you're not, because Yahuwah didn't give you a face like that. He gave you a face that was pristine and perfect. So put oil on your face and watch what it does. It literally shines before men. Now, when you don't cover your face and set a veil over your face, it allows you the opportunity to shine more brilliantly. And there's these people here for thousands of years in history, real history, who have let their faces shine before men. And you know what happens when they do that? The light of the lamp of the living word of Elohim shines brightly through them. And the people that are around them either love it or they hate it. And it's a beautiful thing, because it's a weapon. It's life to some and it's death to others. And it's something they want to extinguish and put out because it exposes what's in them. Or it's something that they want to fan into flames because they recognize they need more of that lighting up the darkness of despair that's been consuming them and taking their life and their hope. And they themselves want to be encouraged to go forth and do likewise. So I'm going to be reading, you guys, from one of the books that the Sefer, okay, this is the translation I'll be reading from tonight. This is the Et Sefer. Et is this Aleph, the Tav. There's these letters from the Paleo, or the Hebrew, called the Aleph Bet. Okay, this is the beginning, the end, first letter, the last letter. Yeshua says, I am the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end. He says, I'm the Et that's in there. So if you hear me saying, as I'm reading through this translation, the phrase Et, it's that, Aleph and Tav. Because throughout our Bibles, you guys, what you don't see if you read it in just English or in Latin or in Greek is that this word is all over the scriptures, like 1,400 times. Like in Genesis 1, all the way throughout it, that you'll see this is in there. And most of our translators just literally threw it out because they're like, yeah, why bother? And it's right there, right in the middle of sentences. This word is always in there. And so if I'm reading along as I go through the scriptures and I'm saying that word, that's why Sefer Publishing Group decided to allow that to stay in there, because it's in the text and they wanted to try to regard the text as best as possible. Some of the challenges with the Sefer is that it's written in such a way that the English rendering to some of these texts is like reading Elizabethan 16th century English. It's like reading Shakespeare English. And I didn't know what that was about, you guys, but I've been studying translations lately, more so than before when I was studying apologetics to defend my faith and knowing what a word-for-word translation Bible was versus a thought-for-thought translation, like, the Message Bible, if you want to call it a Bible. It's not. It's an abomination. True story. Burn that book. Not necessarily the book, just the ideologies that come through that are full of poison and lies. Doctrines of demons is what some people would call them. But thought-for-thought translations tend to get super dangerous. Unfortunately, as most of us don't know how to read ancient Hebrew, we have to go to books like translations that are in our native tongue, right? English, Roman, Latin, French, whatever it may be. And what happens is these translators, you guys, when they go to translate our texts, they don't just take the Hebrew and translate it into English for us. What they do is they then change it, because they're not allowed to copyright a book. If somebody else has copyrighted the same text out of that book, they can't do that. Otherwise, they have to pay royalties to that other publishing group that may have done it. And so instead, they use words that we don't use anymore and make it sound in a way that we don't normally speak in. And so Sefer, as much as I love how the Sefer has done a terrific job of preserving many of the books that used to be in our Bibles, guys, like Maccabees was in many of the Bibles people have read for hundreds or thousands of years, but modern day publishing groups have eliminated that. which is something that people have done for a long time, guys. They have preserved that here. And so I'm going to be reading from the Sefer publication. But as I'm reading along, you guys, if sometimes I'm using words that none of you know what I'm talking about, I feel for you. And it's challenging and it's difficult. But I would like to be able to share with you guys this narrative, this story, because what you're going to see is impossible parallels playing out between what these people were dealing with during the time after King Alexander the Great. You guys know about King Alexander the Great? I'll roll in some footage of him wearing a linothorax. Alexander the Great, one of the most famous kings of all time, right? The Greeks. Daniel prophesied about this king that would come. He obviously conquered huge swaths of the known world, being the whole chunks of Greece, Rome, Asia, India. Wild stuff this guy did. Anyways, at the end of his reign, he split his kingdom up, not based off of his sons, but also based off of his generals. And his generals, one of them, Ptolemy, we're going to be reading about him, spelled with a P before the T, which makes things exciting. He set up a dynasty of kings in Egypt, or Mitzrayim. Well, that's going to bring us right into the timeline of this story. So in most Bibles, you'll get to Malachi, and that's the end. But there's like hundreds of years after that before you get to Yeshua, right? This is going to be smack dab in the middle of that time, like 150, 200-ish years before Messiah's entrance onto the scene, right? Maccabees is an incredible narrative, and I would highly encourage each and every one of you to pay some attention to that story, because what you're going to find in there is people that were dealing with physical, mental, emotional, spiritual persecution on such a scale that it is literally almost horrifying to read the words. So I'm going to give one and only one cautionary warning. The content that I'm going to be reading from is brutal at times. Unbelievable tortures, genocides, horrific homicides and infanticides are going to take place during the course of this story because they take place throughout human history. And it's something that is inescapable as a reality for many human beings in this world. And it is something that deserves to be remembered. And so I would like to be able to read that to you. But I also want to encourage you, for some of you out there who may have younger people that may be watching this, some of the content that we're going to be discussing is going to be graphic. And that's the way it's recorded, like in Ezekiel 8 or 9. There's a lot of passages in the scripture that are definitely brutal and need to maybe bring up deeper conversations and questions with your children. And I would encourage you to have those with them because it could be imminently knocking on your doorstep if you wouldn't maybe regard the other words of the covenant that we're going to be talking about today. So I just want to give that out there as a little caveat. That's a long introduction because I'm likely, guys, going to be reading through the entire book of Maccabees for you, one of the books for you. And it's also going to lead me into Corinthians and Colossians and Deuteronomy and Chronicles. Stinking Chronicles is crushing my face with enthusiasm. Chronicles, because we're going to be talking about the dedication of the temple, which Solomon obviously just had one of the best prayers. I'm on a hunt, guys, for all of you who didn't know it. I'm literally on a hunt for the mightiest prayers in the scripture. I challenge you, if you want to, find the most powerful prayers ever uttered by the human being's mouth, because they're literal super weapons. Like the most powerful weapon on the earth. Here's one for you, okay? I'll read the prayers, but I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a military super weapon that I've studied for a lot of years. It's called the supercavitation torpedo. Are you ready for this? Torpedoes. Torpedoes are something that are launched from submarines generally, or from airplanes, I guess, dropped out of battleships. Okay, it's a missile that goes underwater. Does that make sense? You generally use it to sink other ships or boats that are floating on the water. It's basically the same thing. It's designed to destroy things in the water, okay? And it can be dropped by a helicopter, it can be dropped by an airplane, it can be launched off of the top of a, battle cruiser ship that's floating its way on the sea. Supercavitation torpedoes, guys, are some of the most astounding weaponry that's ever been created and is generally not ever known or discussed. Supercavitation torpedoes, they basically circumvent the normal path that a torpedo takes in the water. Torpedoes designed to go in the water to shoot something and blow it into pieces, right? Some torpedoes, they can go like 60 knots, which is smoking fast underwater. I've tried to swim fast underwater, and it's ridiculously hard. Now, I've seen some things go super fast in the water. Guys, I've seen a swordfish in the water smoking past a boat. Like the swordfish passing a boat. I've seen dolphins leaping out of the water and launching themselves past boats. I've seen an alligator with my eyes go tearing off into the water. I've seen things go so fast in the water, it's inescapable. Literally, you can't run from it. That's why it's a swordfish. Giant sword on the front of its face, and it's eating you. Awesome creatures. We made torpedoes. Second best option. Some are wire guided. Some are just guided by sounds. They just try to chase the sound of the other submarine and blow it to pieces. Well, then somebody figured out, hey, how do I get a torpedo to go so much faster than that? Well, really, you can't push water. You get to a certain point where you're trying to compress water, and you just can't go much faster than that. So what they decided is, let's launch the torpedo inside its own air bubble. So they created a supercavitation bubble. What they do is they will, one method, like the Soviets, the Russians, they would shoot a rocket at the front of a torpedo so that it would create a steam bubble in front of the rocket, and then it had another rocket at the back of this thing to launch it backwards. So it was like flying in the air underwater. Insanity. Basically using steam power to go hundreds of knots. Outrageous destructive capacity coming your way. This was kind of designed to maybe carry a nuclear weapon so that it could just destroy utterly whatever was in its path, and ideally not destroy the submarine that launched it. But generally, you're going to die. Bad news bears. But the supercavitation torpedo is an astounding piece of technology, sorcery, that allowed people to shoot things hundreds of miles an hour under the water. There's nothing like it in the world. There's nothing that can do that same kind of thing. There's also rumors of a version of this that also carried a nuclear weapon that they would launch towards a seashore that they would then detonate, and it would launch a tsunami of nuclear nightmares into your face and destroy your entire inland areas. Because most humans build their places on the water, right? It's beautiful. If you notice, the water levels don't change, you guys, because Yahuwah says he's fixed the water level. It's not going to change. I've been all over this country, guys, and everybody builds their houses as close to the water level as they possibly can. They don't. It doesn't move. Side point. Now, I'm going to be reading. I want you guys to try to find, through the scriptures, the supercavitation torpedoes of prayers. Do you know what I'm saying? I want you guys to find those prayers that are so powerful, there is nothing like them in all of creation. There's nothing like them anywhere else, because the sword that came out of their mouth literally slaughtered the sins of the people. It eradicated the sins of the people. It drove fear out of the hearts of men. It conquered nations. It destroyed kingdoms. It filled men who had been full of fear with courage, and it turned cowards into conquerors. Okay, Solomon, when he dedicates the temple, has a prayer that's like that. So does Jehoshaphat. I used to say, like, anyways, I'm not going to use it. Jehoshaphat has a prayer that's like that. There's a lot of kings in the Chronicles that have prayers like that. And there's a lot of kings, you guys, who have no prayers whatsoever at all, ever listed, that they never prayed one time to Yahweh. A king of Israel didn't pray to Yahweh. Sad day. Anyways, I better jump into this, okay? I'm going to be reading, you guys, 2 Maccabees. This Sefer has 4 Maccabees in it, as in there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to be reading 2 Maccabees. 2 Maccabees is like a synopsis, you guys. Okay? They literally, as we go along here, you're going to hear, they just did their best to kind of take the longer story narrative and compress it so that you could digest it a little easier. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. You ready for this, guys? Bear with me in my lack of pronunciation potential on different Hebrew names. I'm working on learning the language. Give me time. Now, the brethren, the Yahudim that be at Yerushalayim and in the land of Yahudah, wish unto the brethren, the Yahudim that are throughout Mitzrayim, health and peace. Elohim be gracious unto you, and remember his covenant that he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, his faithful servants, and give you all a heart to serve him, and to do his will, with a good courage and a willing mind, and open your hearts in his Torah and commandments, and send you peace, and hear your prayers, and be at one with you, and never forsake you in the time of trouble. And now, we be here praying for you. What time as Demetrius reigned in the 169th year, 169th year, we, the Yahudim, wrote unto you in the extremity of trouble that came upon us in those years, from the time that Jachin, and his company revolted from the Holy Land and kingdom, and burned the porch of the temple, and shed innocent blood. Then we prayed unto Yahweh, and were heard. We offered also sacrifices, and fine flour, and lit the lamps, and set forth the loaves. And now see that ye keep the feast of Hanukkah in the month of Kislev, in the 168th year. The people that were out Jerusalem and in Yahudah, and the council and Yahudah, sent greeting and health unto Aristobulus, the king Ptolemy's master, who was of the stock of the anointed priests, and to the Yahudim that were in Mitzrayim. Insomuch as Elohim has delivered us from great perils, we thank him highly, as having been in battle against a king. For he cast them out that fought within the holy city, Jerusalem. For when the leader was come into Persia, and the army with him that seemed invincible, they were slain in the temple of Nanea by the deceit of Nanea's priests. For Antiochus, as though he would marry her, came into the place, and his friends that were with him, to receive money in the name of a dowry, which when the priests of Nanea had set forth, and was entered into with a small company into the compass of the temple, they shut the temple as soon as Antiochus was come in, and opening a private door of the roof, they threw great stones like thunderbolts, and struck down the captain, and cut them into pieces, and smote off their heads, and cast them to those that were without. Blessed be our Elohim in all things, who has delivered up the wicked. Therefore, whereas we are now purposed to keep the purification of the temple upon the 25th day of the month of Kislev, we thought it necessary to certify you thereof, that ye also might keep it, as the feast of Hanukkah and of fire, which was given to us when Nehemiah offered sacrifice, after he had built the temple and the altar. Read the book of Nehemiah and Ezra to get a better picture of that. For when our fathers were led into Persia, the priests that were there, then devout, took the fire of the altar privately, and they hid it in a hollow place of a pit without water, where they kept it sure, so that the place was unknown to all men. Now, after many years, when it pleased Elohim, Nehemiah, being sent from the king of Persia, did send of the posterity of those priests that had hid it to the fire. But when they told us, they found no fire, but thick water. Then commanded him to draw up the thick water, and to bring it anyways. And when the sacrifices were laid on it, Nehemiah commanded the priests to sprinkle the wood and the things thereon with the water. And when this was done, and the time came that the sun was shining, which afore was hid in the cloud, there was a great fire kindled, so that every man marveled. And the priests made a prayer while sacrifice was being consumed. I say, both the priests and all the rest, Jonathan beginning, and the rest answering as Nehemiah did. And the prayer was after this manner. Here comes your supercavitation torpedo, y'all. Get ready. O Yahuwah, Yahuwah Elohim, creator of all things, who is fearful and strong, and righteous and merciful, and the only and gracious King, the only giver of all things, the only just, almighty, and everlasting, you that deliver Yasharel from all trouble, and did choose the fathers and sanctify them. Receive the sacrifice for your people, Yasharel, and guard your own portion. Sanctify it. Gather those together that are scattered from us. Deliver them that serve among the heathen. Look upon them that are despised and abhorred, and let the heathen know that you are our Elohim. Punish them that oppress us, and with pride do us wrong. Plant your people again in your holy place, as Moshe has spoken. And the priests sung psalms of thanksgiving. Now when the sacrifice was consumed, Nehemiah commanded that the water that was left to be poured out on the great stones. When this was done, there was kindled a flame, but it was consumed by the light that shone from the altar. So when this matter was known, it was told the king of Persia that in the place where the priests that were led away had hid the fire, there appeared water, and that Nehemiah had purified the sacrifices with it. Then the king, enclosing the place, made it holy. And after he had tested out this matter, and the king took many gifts and bestowed them thereon to those whom he would gratify. And Nehemiah called this thing Naphthar, which is as much as to say a cleansing, but many men call it Nephu. It is also found in the records that Jeremiah, commanded them that were carried away to take the fire as it had been signified. Pause real quick. Jeremiah, if you haven't read the book of Jeremiah, it will give you a lot of context as to everything else that happens in the scripture. There's a reason our Bibles are written from like Genesis to Revelation. Different translation arrange those books in different orders. Most of us, I grew up with like the NIV, KJV, the ESV, the NASB. Those arrange the books in a different kind of order than like the Tanakh or the Hebrew renderings of the scriptures have done over antiquity. The Sefer here arranges the books more chronologically, so you get an idea of where you are at in history as you read along. If you read the books of 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, not in historical timeline. Most of them put Chronicles after all those other books, like after the Psalms, after all of those other books, so that you're kind of understanding the timeline as you go along. Jeremiah, Isaiah, Ezekiel, these guys are almost contemporaneous kind of characters that are living at a same time frame. Jeremiah is present during the times where the kingdom, the house of Israel, 10 tribes, and 2 tribes, Judah and Benjamin, house of Israel is given a bill of divorce. Yahuwah literally divorces Israel, and he doesn't divorce Judah and Benjamin, okay? He divorces Israel and casts them out. He brings in the kings of Assyria, like to a slaughtering of them. And he steals them away and he scatters them among all of the nations of the earth. Judah and Benjamin, they also go whoring out with other people. So Yahuwah sends an army, King Nebuchadnezzar, out of Babylon to come and capture Judah and Jerusalem and take many of them away as slaves, captives, okay? This is who Nehemiah is referring to. Whenever they talk about the people who are scattered abroad, that's the lost sheep of the house of Israel that have been sown out to the whole corners of the earth. Other times, he's talking about the people that were taken captive out of Judah, Jerusalem. Okay, Jeremiah was a witness to that. He was literally in a pit while that took place. Okay, he was raised up out of that pit and preserved. This is the moment in time that Jeremiah they're talking about right now. Is when after Jeremiah gets out of the pit, he does something here that's pretty spicy. And how that the prophet, okay, it is also found in the records that Jeremiah the prophet commanded them that were being carried away to take the fire from the temple, guys, as it had been signified, and how that the prophet, having given them the Torah, charged them not to forget the commandments of Yahuwah, and that they should not err in their minds when they see the images of silver and gold with their ornaments. And with such speeches exhorted he them that the Torah should not depart from their hearts. It was also contained in the same writing that the prophet, being warned of Elohim, commanded the tabernacle and the ark to go with them. And so he went forth into the mountain, where Moshe climbed up and saw the heritage of Elohim. That's Mount Pisgah. And when Jeremiah came thither, he found a hollow cave, wherein he laid the tabernacle, and the ark, and the altar of incense. And so he stopped the door. And some of those that followed him came to mark the way, but they could not find it. Ultimate treasure hunt of all of your life to find the Ark of the Covenant. It says here that Jeremiah specifically hid it in a cave on Mount Pisgah, and all the other people that wanted to try to go find it could not. Ready for this? As for that place, it shall be unknown until the time that Elohim gather his people again together and receive them unto his mercy. Then shall Yahuwah show them these things, and the glory of Yahuwah shall appear, and the cloud also, as it was showed under Moshe, and also as when Solomon, desired that the place, the temple, might be honorably sanctified. It was also declared that he, being wise, offered the sacrifice of dedication and of the finishing of the temple. And as when Moshe prayed unto Yahuwah, the fire came down from heaven and consumed the sacrifices. Even so prayed Solomon also, and the fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offerings. And Moshe said, because the sin offering was not to be eaten, it was consumed. So Solomon kept those 8 days. The same things were also reported in the writings and the commentaries of Nehemiah, and how he, founding a library, gathered together the acts of the kings, the prophets, and of David, and the Sepharim of the kings concerning the holy gift. In like manner also Yahudah gathered together all those things that were lost by reason of the war we had, and they remain with us. Pause. I'm going to read for you guys how Solomon dedicated that temple. Sholoma. It's going to take me a second to get used to that. Are you ready for this, guys? So now I'm going to skip over to 2 Chronicles, okay? All right, guys. So now I'm in 2 Chronicles. And real quick, Solomon, one of the first things he did was to bring the Ark of the Covenant, like the one Jeremiah just hid in the mountain. He went and brought that to the temple, okay? Next thing he does is he makes a huge assembly of all the people to come and gather forth to see this that's about to go down here. All these people, tens of thousands of humans, gathered together for a super celebration. You ready for this? He also built like a stand in the midst of this. So this is 2 Chronicles 6. And he stood before the altar of Yahuwah in the presence of all the assembly of Yasharel and spread forth his hands. For Solomon had made a brazen scaffold of 5 cubits long and 5 cubits broad and 3 cubits high, and had set it in the midst of the court. And upon it he stood and kneeled down upon his knees. Real quick, let's pause for a second. He stood up, king of Israel and Judah, all united, 12 tribes. This is the last king of Israel that actually is around when the tribes are united, okay? There's another king who has a brief window of it, Rehoboam, his son, but it doesn't last long. You ready for this? He stands up, then he kneels. This is really, really important. If you read anytime people are launching their super cavitation torpedoes, their super weapons, you'll notice a lot of times they launch the weapons from their faces or their knees. Daniel, right? He's about to go contend with a bunch of lions in a pit. What's he do? Gets down on his knees, opens his windows, and prays east towards Jerusalem. You're going to hear that a few times in here. There's a lot of people who do pray towards Jerusalem. Here's Solomon, and you'll hear him talking about doing the same thing. And it's interesting. But position of humility while praying is a powerful thing because it reminds man not to be puffed up with pride. You're going to see some serious repercussions for those who get puffed up with pride here. You ready for this? And he said, and he spread forth his hands towards heaven and said, O Yahuwah, Elohim of Yasharel, there is no Elohim like you in the heavens, nor in the earth, which guards the covenant and shows mercy unto your servants that walk before you with all their hearts. You, which have guarded with your servant David, my father, at that which you have promised him, and spoke with your mouth, and have fulfilled it with your hands, as it is this day. Now, therefore, O Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel, guard with your servant David, my father, at that which you have promised him, saying, There shall not fail you a man in my sight, to sit upon the throne of Yasharel, yet so that your children take heed to walk to their way in my Torah, as you have walked before me. Now, Then, O Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel, let your word be verified, which you have spoken unto your servant David. But will Elohim in very deed dwell with men on the earth? Behold, the heavens and the heaven of heavens cannot contain you. How much less this house which I have built? Have respect, therefore, to the prayer of your servant, and to his supplication, O Yahuwah Elohai, to hearken unto the cry, and the prayer which your servant prays before you, that your eyes may be open upon this house day and night, upon the place whereof you have said that you would put your name there, to hearken unto the prayer which your servant prays towards this place. Hearken therefore unto the supplications of your servant and of your people Yasharel, which they shall make toward this place. Hear from your dwelling place, even from heaven, and when you hear, forgive. If a man sin against his neighbor, and an oath be laid upon him to make him swear, and the oath come before your altar in this house, then hear from heaven, and do and judge at your servants by requiting the wicked, by recompensing his ways upon his own head, and by justifying the righteous, by giving him according to his righteousness. And if your people, Yasharel, be put to the worst before the enemy, because they have sinned against you, and shall return, and confess at your name, and pray, and make supplication before you in this house, then hear from the heavens, and forgive the sin of your people, Yasharel, and bring them again unto the land which you gave to them and to their fathers. And when the heavens are shut up, and there is no rain, because they have sinned against you, yet if they pray toward this place, and confess at your name, and turn from their sin when you do afflict them, then hear from heaven, and forgive the sins of your servants and of your people Yasharel, when you have taught them the good way wherein they should walk, and send rain upon your land which you have given unto your people for an inheritance. And if there be famine in the land, if there be pestilence, if there be blasting, or mildew, or locusts, or caterpillars, and if their enemies besiege them in their cities of their land, or whatsoever sickness or sore be upon them, then what prayer or what supplication whatsoever shall be made of any man of all your people Yasharel, when everyone shall know his own sores and his own griefs, and shall spread forth his hands in this house, then hear from heaven your dwelling place, and forgive, and render unto every man according unto all his ways, at whose heart you know, for you only know the hearts of the children of men, that they may fear you, to walk in your ways, so long as they live in the land which you gave unto our fathers. Moreover, concerning the stranger, which is not of your people Yasharel, but is come from a far country, for your great name's sake, and your mighty hand, and your stretched out arm, if they come and pray in this house, then hear from the heavens, even from your dwelling place, and do according to all that the stranger calls to you, for that of all the people of the earth may know that at your name, and fear you, as do your people Yasharel, and may know that this house which I have built is called by your name. If your people go out to war against their enemies, by the way that you shall send them, and they pray unto you toward this city which you have chosen, and the house which I have built for your name, then hear from the heavens at their prayer and their supplication, and maintain their cause. And if they sin against you, for there is no man which sins not, and you be angry with them, and deliver them over before their enemies, and they carry them away captive unto a land far off or near, yet if they think to themselves in the land where they are carried captive, and turn, teshuvah, and pray unto you in the land of their captivity, saying, We have sinned, we have done amiss, and have dealt wickedly. If they return to you with all their heart and with all their soul in the land of their captivity, where you have carried them captives, and pray toward their land, which you gave unto their fathers, and toward the city which you have chosen, and toward the house which I have built for your name, then hear from the heavens, even from your dwelling place, at their prayer and at their supplication, and maintain their cause, and forgive your people which have sinned against you. Now, my Elohim, let, I beseech you, your eyes be open, and let your ears be attentive unto the prayer that is made in this place. Now therefore arise, O Yahuwah Elohim, into your resting place, you and the ark of your strength. Let your priests, O Yahuwah Elohim, be clothed with Yeshua, and let your Yachid rejoice in goodness. O Yahuwah Elohim, turn not away the face of your anointed, and remember the mercies of David your servant. Now when Solomon had made an end of praying, the fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offering and the sacrifices, and the glory of Yahuwah had filled the house. And the priest could not enter into the house of Yahuwah, because the glory of Yahuwah had filled at Yahuwah's house. And when all the children of Yasharel saw how the fire came down and the glory of Yahuwah upon the house, they bowed down themselves with their faces to the ground upon the pavement, and worshipped and praised Yahuwah, saying, For he is good, for his mercy endures forever. Then the king and all the people offered sacrifices before Yahuwah, and King Solomon offered at a sacrifice of 22,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep. So the king and all the people dedicated the house of Elohim, and the priests waited on their offices, the Leviim also with the instruments of music of Yahuwah, which David the king had made to praise Yahuwah, because his mercy endures forever. When David praised by their ministry, and the priests sounded their shofars before them, and all of Yasharel stood. Moreover, Solomon hallowed the middle of the court that was before the house of Yahuwah, for there he offered burnt offerings and the fat of peace offerings, because the brazen altar which Solomon had burned was not able to receive at the burnt offerings and at the meat offerings and at the fat. And also at the same time Solomon kept at the feast 7 days, and all of Yasharel with him, a great assembly from the entering in of Hamath unto the river of Mitzrayim. And in the 8th day they made a solemn assembly, for they kept the dedication of the altar 7 days, and the feast 7 days. And on the 20th day of the 7th month he sent at the people away into their tents, glad and merry in their hearts for the goodness that Yahuwah had shown to David, and to Solomon and to Yasharel his people. Thus Solomon finished the house of Yahuwah, and at the king's house, and at all that came into Solomon's heart to make in the house of Yahuwah, and in his own house he prospered effectively. That is the dedication of the temple originally, the set-apart place where Yahuwah wanted to be with his people. The temple, you guys, was a place where Yahuwah would mend, restore, and reconcile relationships, not just with you and Yahuwah, but with you and your brother and Yahuwah, because all of the Torah, the commandments of Yahuwah, they can be summarized in 10 words, 10 commandments. The first 4 are about your relationship with him, the vertical relationship. The other 6 are all about your relationship with the people around you, your neighbors, okay? His instructions that were supposed to be written on our hearts are supposed to be impressed upon us, guys. They are supposed to take place in the new temple, which is our bodies. Our bodies are now the temple, the tabernacle. The set-apart Spirit is supposed to dwell in us, like on the Ark of the Covenant. Yeshua is supposed to dwell with us, His Spirit resting upon us. The Spirit of Yahweh should be set up, living in a set-apart place. Solomon dedicated the temple with this elaborate, incredible, mighty prayer. And then he made sacrifices. He gave out of his best to the one who is worthy, so that that house, that place would be set apart and made kadosh, ready to receive the fire of Yahweh. Our bodies, you guys, are supposed to be able to be set apart and to be a place where that Spirit can dwell in us. That is why so much of what Chelsea and I and what we try to do here is to share with you guys how to come out of consuming death, poison, destruction, physically what we eat, what we drink, what we look upon, what we listen to, what we put on our skin, to get us away from corrupting, putting abominations into our temple, guys. Because the whole story of Maccabees is about these kings, these other people who would come into this same temple that Solomon just dedicated and try to destroy it by putting into it, by carving into it, by setting up things inside of it, by covering it with abominations, so that the people of Yahuwah would be blotted out, destroyed. Because the temple, you guys, is a special place. It's a very special place. And the enemy wants to put abominations inside that temple so that we would be destroyed. Yahuwah, though, if you hear here, is merciful, and He is willing when we would prostrate ourselves before Him, when we would get upon our face and pray towards Him and incline lift up our voices and ask Him to incline His ears to us, that He would listen to us cry and our cries, you guys. There's verses in the scripture that literally say, because you stopped listening to me and the words that I said, I'm going to plug my ears while you scream. And I've literally had to do that, you guys, because I live in a rectangle and sound is so much louder in here. I can't lift my hands above my head, you guys, in my own house. It's a tiny place. And so when like a baby cries in here, or when like the air conditioner is on, or we're cooking or vacuuming, sound is just amplified in our RV. And so I've literally put earplugs in my ears when people are crying or yelling or just basic noise to help muffle the sound. And I was thinking about that the other day, that I literally was putting in earplugs because my baby was screaming. She wasn't screaming because of anything other than, her sister took her toy. Struggles. The struggle bus is a real place, you guys. And young parents of young children, they spend a frequent amount of time on there punching tickets to the next destination known as toddlerhood, right? It's an intense journey. But it's teaching me lessons about why the Father would plug His ears to our screams. Because we plugged our ears when He was trying to tell us. Like, the Father's giving us instructions. They're loving instructions. And people are like, yeah, but I'd rather go set up these other Elohim in my house. Or I'd rather go eat pork because it's delicious, right? What's wrong with eating poison? I don't know. Maybe it's called the abomination of desecration, you guys. The abomination of desolation, you guys read about in prophecy. Maccabees literally tells you it's eating pork inside the temple. Just something to consider, all right? Let's get back into Maccabees, though. We'll digress a little bit here. Hold on a second. Now, as you guys know, I'm in 2nd Maccabees, and now I'm back in chapter 2. You ready? Let's dive in. Hopefully I've offended a fair amount of your flesh. You ready? Let's jump in. And in like manner, I'll just recap a little bit. In like manner, also, verse 14, Yahudah gathered together all those things that were lost by reason of the war we had, and they remain with us. Wherefore, if ye have need thereof, send some to fetch them unto you. Whereas we then are about to celebrate the purification we have written unto you, and you shall do well if you keep the same days. We hope also that the Elohim that delivered all His people and gave them all a heritage, and the kingdom, and the priesthood, and the sanctuary, as He promised in the Torah, will shortly have mercy upon us, and gather us together out of every land under heaven into the holy place. For He has delivered us out of great troubles, and purified the place. Now, as concerning Yahuda Maccabee and his brother, often said Judah Maccabee, and his brethren, and the purification of the great temple and the altar, and the wars against Antiochus Epiphanes and Jupiter his son, and the manifest signs that came from heaven unto those that behaved themselves manfully, courageously, to their honor for Yahudah, so that being but a few, they overcame the whole country, and chased barbarous multitudes, and recovered again the temple, renowned all the world over, and freed the city, and upheld the Torah, which were going down, Yahuwah being gracious unto them with all favor, grace. All these things I say, being declared by Yacon of Cyrene in 5 Sepharim, or books, we will essay to abridge in 1 volume. For consider the infinite number and the difficulty which they find that desire to look into the narrations of this story for the variety of the matter. But we have been careful that they will read, who read this may have delight, and that they that are desirous to commit to memory might have ease. Basically, he's saying we're giving you a summary, you guys, so you can memorize this book instead of having to memorize 5. Think about how generous that was. He's allowing people the ability to get this book into their memory banks. Something to consider. If you want to store bullets, store Bible verses. They're so much more deadly than a bullet. They'll get you way more food than a bullet. You ever heard about manna? He rained food out of the sky for 6 million human beings, maybe 10 million people, every single day for 40 years. All the food they needed. All of it. Okay? Take Manhattan, New York City. He could feed the entire New York City out of dew that rained out of heaven. That was the word, one word, from Yahuwah. Something to consider if you're concerned about prepping food or prepping bullets these days. Prep the Bible. It's shockingly effective. All right, I digress. Therefore, to us that have taken upon us this painful labor of abridging, it was not easy, but a matter of sweat and watching, diligence, perseverance, even as it is no ease unto him that prepares a banquet, and seeks the benefit of others. Yet for the pleasuring of many, we will undertake gladly this great pains, leaving to the author the exact handling of every particular, and laboring to follow the rules of an abridgment. For as the master builder of a new house must care for the whole building, but he that undertakes to set it out and paint it must seek out fit things for the adorning thereof. Even so I think it is with us, to stand upon every point and to go over things at large, and to be curious in particulars belong to the first author of the story. But to use brevity, and avoid much laboring of the work, it is to be granted to him that we make an abridgment. Here then we will begin the story, only adding thus much to that which has been said, that it is a foolish thing to make a long prologue, and to be short in the story itself. Awesome. Now, here we go, you guys. Ready? Let's jump in. Hold on a second. Oh, we're an hour in already? Dudes. Dudettes. Brave ones. Do you think we can jump in yet? Maybe not. Maybe so. You know what? No, let's pause. Before we get into war elephants and squadrons of just colonies of crazy chaos creatures, biggest wars that have ever been fought, hundreds of thousands of human beings fighting for their lives, some of whom don't have swords or shields, impossible prayers of supercavitation torpedoes being launched, assassination attempts, human beings giving up their lives so that no abomination is ever done, nor will they even utter with their mouth another Elohim's name. Incredible dedication to the commandments and the instructions, and a love and a zealousness to guard the temple no matter what the cost. Before we go into that story, I've got to tell you guys and challenge you guys to devote yourselves to guarding your temple with the same zealousness that we're going to read about. I'm going to split this up over a couple videos because I don't think most of you can hang very long. I love you, but some of you guys have very, very difficult. You have a lot of difficulty in enduring a story reading from the scriptures, but you're going to work on your endurance, right? Now, before I do that, I wanted to give you something to encourage you. You ready for this? You ready for this? Okay. The reason, you guys, I think you should consider making an absolute all-in stand for not covering your face with anything other than the face that's shining upon you, that Yahuwah has given you to freely bestow upon men, that you might offer a word to the weary in a time of encouragement that they need it. Because Chelsea and I chose not to cover our faces, we've literally cultivated communities all across this country with other human beings that I never would have talked to for any other reason other than I saw their face and they saw mine. And we were able to offer each other encouragement. We poured inspiration on each other, sometimes with our words, but most of the time just with our faces. We've been cursed at, we've been screamed at, we've been chased out of places, we've been kicked out of places, we've been mocked, we've been belittled, we've been persecuted somewhat for the sake of just allowing our face to shine before men. But you know what? We have a commandment from the scriptures that says to make our faces shine before men, that forbids us from covering our faces. Do you want to hear it? Let's do it. All right, you ready for this? So that you can have some foundation to stand upon when you guard your temple from people trying to put a veil over it. You ready? Here you go. This is 2 Corinthians, okay? Are you ready? So he's going to be talking about Moses. Moses, for reference here, when he would go up into Sinai, up onto the mountain to talk with Yahuwah, his face, when he would come down, or when he would go into the temple, the tabernacle back then, skins, tent, superdome, awesome place. When he would go in there to talk to Yahuwah, the glory of Yahuwah would literally make his face shine like the sun. His face was shining like the sun so brightly that the people literally were like, put a facial covering on your face. Put a mask on your face. We don't want to see that here. Okay, you ready for this? This is what Paul is referencing that, or Shaul is referencing that. For even that which was made glorious had no glory in this respect, by reason of the glory that excels. For if that which is done away was glorious, much more that which remains is glorious. Seeing then that we have such a hope, we use great plainness of speech, and not as Moshe, which put a veil over his face, that the children of Yasharel could not steadfastly look to the end of that which is abolished. But their minds were blinded. For until this day remains the same veil, not taken away when they read of the ancient covenant, which veil is done away in Mashiach. But even unto this day, when Moshe is read, the veil is upon their hearts. Nevertheless, it shall turn to El Yahuwah, the veil shall be taken away. Now Yahuwah is that Ruach, and where the Ruach of Yahuwah is, there is liberty. Here's the verse. But we all, with an open face, uncovered face, beholding as in a glass the glory of Yahuwah, are changed into the same image, from glory to glory, even as by the Ruach Yahuwah. Therefore, seeing we have this ministry, as we have received mercy, we faint not, meaning we don't quit when we're tired. Tired of having to deal with the conflict, tired of having to find another way to not go to that store. Like, my wife and I, we can't go to Costco anymore. And that may sound like, wow, tough luck. No, man, that's a real difficult thing when that was a place where you used to get, olive oil. We make a lot of bread. We're big fans of it. We need olive oil, right? Or we need coconut butter. Or we need to be able to acquire some of these goods. And we've been dependent on Costco for years of our life to be a place that we could count on to go and get those supplies from at a discounted price, right? And now that's no longer available to us in any capacity, right? Because they demand that we would put on some kind of covering over our face in order to enter their premises. And we absolutely categorically refuse. We abstain from committing to ourselves disobedient to the commandments of Yahuwah. Like, I regard this as the most important thing I could ever do, to obey the commandments of my Father. Because you know what, guys? I lived so many years of my life by other commandments. Commandments that I used to enforce or were enforced upon me under this kind of a covenant that pressed upon my neck death, destruction, death in every area of my life. It wrought It brought forth the fruits of nightmares. It stole my sleep. It ruined me for so many years of my life because I disregarded the instructions of my Father in heaven. And you know what? When I started to regard him, when I started to actually pick up this book and believe it was the most important thing in the room, that it was more valuable to me than treasures like this. See that? That's a dinosaur bone. To me, some of the most valuable treasures in the world. He's led me on quests all over this country to find dinosaur bones. It's some of the most valuable things I've ever discovered in my life. You know when he gave it to me? When I started recording this as the most valuable treasure chest in the world. I literally went diving for treasure chests of gold. I've dove for Spanish galleons gold that were shipwrecked off the coasts of southern United States. I've dove into their waters and looked for Spanish gold. I prayed diligently that he would give me gold and silver from the chests of these people who stole it from other people. I know, maybe not what I wanted. But I was looking into the oceans for that treasure. And you know what? This is the greatest treasure chest that has ever been. Because this is one treasure chest that's unlike all the other treasure chests. I know some of you guys are super into this. You're like, I like all those movies where the archaeologist is setting out on a quest because somebody gave him a map like this. And you know what? It's going to lead you to all the good stuff. This is a treasure map that's been drawn by someone. It's in ancient Hebrew characters. No, it's just written by a child. Because you know what? Apparently, they know how to write the best treasure maps in all of existence. Yahuwah gave us a treasure map that a child can read and find all the best stuff in. Do you know how I know this? Because he said so. You ready for this? His treasure chest, this is the only one like it in all the world. You could go to the king's chambers and never find anything as wonderful as what you'll find in here. Because in this are hidden all wisdom and all the knowledge, all the secrets, all the mysteries. Everything that's ever been needing to know is hidden in here. Hidden right here. Easy enough for a child to find it. Easy enough for a king to find it too. But it also could be concealed from kings, so they have to go seek it out. That's literally how I started my book called Snatched from the Flames. It is the glory of Elohim to conceal a matter, hide a matter, to hide something. But it is the honor of kings to search it out. You're made to be priests and kings, you guys. So go search out his treasure chest. Because this treasure chest, when you open it, when you finally find it, when you open it up, it may look like it's only 4 feet wide and 2 feet deep. And you can pull all the gold out of it. And it refills itself instantly. There's more gold. The more you find in there, actually more gold comes out of it. It's unlike every other thing. You ready? Deuteronomy 29:29. Check this out. Here we go. Now, the secrets of Yahuwah Eloheinu and the revealing to us and our sons forever is by the keeping of all the words of this Torah. You want the secrets of Yahuwah? You want the treasure? Regard his Torah. Regard his instructions. They're not all of what's important in here, but they're the foundations. They're built upon the cornerstone that everything else is built upon, right? So that when you get into places like 2 Corinthians and Paul starts talking about treasures, that's what he's talking about. You ready for this? So, therefore, seeing that we have this ministry, as we have received mercy, we faint not, but have renounced the hidden things of dishonesty. My family, as for me and my family, we've renounced the hidden things of dishonesty. That's what my last book was about, Snatched from the Flames. It was about me renouncing the things of dishonesty, of cruelty, of violence, of hatred, of murder, of idolatry, of adulterous living that had permeated my life from the day of my conception until the day I came out of that kingdom and entered into a new one. You ready for this? Not walking in craftiness, nor handling the word of Yahuwah deceitfully, but by manifestation of the truth, commending ourselves to every man's conscience in the sight of Yahuwah. But if our basora, good news, be hidden, it is hid to them that are lost, in whom the Eloah, the God of this world, has blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious Basora of Hamashiach, who is the image of Yahuwah, should shine unto them. For we preach not ourselves, but et Hamashiach Yahusha, our Adonai, and ourselves your servant for Yahusha's sake. For Yahuwah, who commanded the light to shine out of darkness, has shined in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of Yahuwah in the face of Yahushua HaMashiach. But we have this treasure in earthen vessels, our bodies, that the excellency of the power may be of Yahuwah and not of us. For we are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Cast down, but not destroyed. Always bearing about in the body the dying of Adonai Yahusha, that the life also of Yahusha might be made manifest in our body. For we which live are always delivered unto death for Yahusha's sake, that the life also of Yahusha might be made manifest in our mortal flesh. So then death works in us, but life in you. We, having the same rock of faith, according as it is written, I believe, and therefore I have spoken. We also believe and therefore speak, knowing that he which raised up Adonai Yahusha shall raise up us also by Yahusha, and shall present us with you. For all things are for your sakes, that the abundant grace, favor, might through the thanksgiving of many redound to the glory of Yah, for which cause we faint not. But though our outward man perish, yet the inward man is renewed day by day. For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, works for us far more exceeding an eternal weight of glory. While we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal. For we know that if our earthly house of this tabernacle were dissolved, we have a building of Yah, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. For in this we groan, earnestly desiring to be clothed upon with our house which is from heaven, if so that being clothed we shall not be found naked. For we that are in this tabernacle do groan, being burdened, not for that which we would be unclothed, but clothed upon, that mortality might be swallowed up of life. Now he that has wrought for us the same thing is Yahuwah, who has given unto us the earnest of the Ruach. Therefore we are always confident, knowing that while we are at home in the body, we are absent from Yahuwah. For we walk by faith and not by sight. We are confident, I say, and willing rather to be absent from the body and to be present with El Yahuwah. Therefore we labor, that whether we are present or absent, we may be accepted of him. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Hamashiach, that everyone may receive the things done in his body, according to that which he has done, whether it be good or bad, knowing therefore that the fear of Yahuwah we persuade men, but we are made manifest unto Yah, and I trust also are made manifest in your consciences. For we commend not ourselves again unto you, but we give you occasion and glory on our behalf, that you may somewhat to answer them which glory in appearance and not in heart. For whether we be beside ourselves, it is to Yahuwah, or whether we be sober, it is for your cause. For the love of Hamashiach constrains us, because thus we judge, that if one died for all, then we all are dead, and that he died for all, that they which live should not henceforth live unto themselves, but unto him which died for them and rose again. Wherefore, hence know ye no man after the flesh. Though we have known Hamashiach after the flesh, yet now know we him no more. Therefore, if any man be in Mashiach, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are becoming new, and all things are of Yahuwah, who has reconciled us to himself by Yahushua HaMashiach, and has given to us the ministry of reconciliation, to which that Yahuwah was in Mashiach, reconciling the world unto himself, not imputing their transgressions unto them, and has committed unto us the word of reconciliation. Now then, we are ambassadors for Hamashiach, as though Yahuwah did beseech you by us. We pray you in Hamashiach's stead, be ye reconciled to Yahuwah, for he has made him to be sin for us, who knew no sin, that we might be made the righteousness of Yah in him. I am weary and worn out, and my body is broken in ways that are inexpressible. It is beyond me to physically get up and keep going some days, many days, many days. It is wearying beyond measure to just live in this skin suit that I have, because when I was in that other kingdom, I was crushed horrifically in unspeakable ways. It was all I knew, and I was devastated by it. And it damaged me. It corrupted me. It perverted me. And you know what so much of that damage came from? People that defiled my temple, that put things in me that should not have been there. Damaging things that came at the end of a needle, experimental drugs that people tempted me with strength and vitality and a better life, that offered me convenience, that offered me the opportunity to live a life that I wanted, if only I was willing to stand in a line and have somebody shove needles in my arm. And you know what? I received that, and it ruined me. It corrupted me, and I bear in my body devastating wounds from that, and from other horrible things that were done unto me by people that devastated my soul. And I want people instead to see the wonders of regeneration that the Father has done in me, and is still doing in me. I bear many of those afflictions, and you know what? It takes everything in me to get up and to face the day of being a parent, to face raising children outside of that system, to labor for my family, so that, you know what, when I can't go to the stores anymore, when I'm persecuted away from being able to go to the stores to acquire food, I can work by the sweat of my face. I don't trade money for food. I'm dependent on the Father to sustain me, and I work and I trade the sweat of my face to eat food from people. That's what He has given to me. I trade instead in that. I refuse to participate in a system that has corrupted my soul anymore. And you know what? The Father doesn't want us to. If they refuse to allow us entrance into their kingdom unless we compromise, then abstain from participating in their system of corruption anymore. And instead, you know what? Yahuwah has provided for my family different needs, or different opportunities to acquire our needs. He has brought people into our path at just the right hour, on the day we needed it, exactly what we needed. He has sustained us day by day. Because of it, His glory is allowed to shine through me, so I can be a witness to Him in all the places that we go. And my family can be a set-apart people that don't bear the mark of compromise, but instead we bear the name of Yahuwah upon our heads. And I want the name of Yahuwah to be inscribed upon your heads. I want His instructions, His loving instructions, to be written on your hearts. I want them to shine forth from you, that the glory of Yahuwah would be upon you, and that the risen sun would be glorious upon your face, so that men would look upon you and know that you were not of this world, that you were of a strange kingdom, that you were of a strange place. And you know what? They wanted to be a part of that because they love people of uncompromising conviction. Even the Elohim of this age, the gods of this age, respect people, their enemy, who does have conviction. I want you to be people of conviction. I want you to receive the treasures of Yahuwah, because He will give you everything from His storehouses. He gives me strength every day just to keep going. He gives my wife strength to just get up and keep going, to labor for our children to receive a different covenant, that my family could be a set-apart family. We broke off the generational curses. We stand in the fire, and I lift my children up as I burn with the nightmares and the memories of what I endured every time they cry, every time they scream, every time they live normal lives. When my children eat good food, I suffer inside because I realize finally that I didn't get that I was perverted from such an early age. And just to see my children have freedom sometimes hurts so much, to see them enjoy freedom, because I see that I did not get that.
and it crushes me. But you know what? When those flames of my past come burning, I lift my daughters up above those flames so they can be free. I build a wall. I cut a break in the fire line so that, you know what? Let me be consumed, but let my children be spared. Because Yahuwah says children shall not be put to death for the sins of their fathers. And I want my children to be raised up knowing that their father laid his life down for them. Because I laid my life down for my king, my master. And you know what? That's the covenant that I have with my king, that I will offer myself up so that I alone have to burn in that affliction. And my Messiah will come and burn with me. And he will be with me like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And he will cool me in the flames. And he will be with me in the fire. And he will sustain me. I know he will sustain you. Those of you who have endured so much, I pray he would strengthen you and give you the courage to stand up and to build a line in the sand so that the fires of this worldly persecution would light upon the King of your deliverance, the author of your faith, that he alone would be your shield. It is Yeshua that is your shield. It is Yahuwah that is your defense. When you stand for him and his commands, when you refuse to commit whoredom and abominations with these other Elohim, he will defend you. He will raise up and pour the fire of Yahuwah down upon your enemies. And you know what? He will bless them and he will destroy them. He will guard you and deliver you in a single day. Colossians 2. In whom, ready? For I would that you would know what conflict I have for you, as for them at Laodicea, and as for many that have not seen my face in the flesh. It's important to see people's face in the flesh. That their hearts might be comforted, being knit together in love, and unto all riches of the full assurance of understanding, to the acknowledgement of the mystery of Yahuwah, and of the Father, and of Mashiach, in whom are hid all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. And this I say, lest any man should beguile you with enticing words. For though I be absent in the flesh, yet I am with you in the Ruach, joying in beholding your order and the steadfastness of your faith in Mashiach. As you therefore have received Hamashiach and Yahushua our Adonai, so walk ye in him, rooted and built up in him, and established in the faith as you have been taught, abounding with thanksgiving. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the traditions of men, after the rudiments of this world, and not after Hamashiach. For in him dwells all the fullness of Elohim bodily. And you are complete in him, which is the head of all principality and power. I want him who is above all to be ruling and reigning within you. And I hope your face would shine before men, and that the glory of Yahuwah would be upon you, that you would see the power of the living Elohim when you walk in his ways, and when you regard his words, and you faithfully commit yourself to not submitting to the gods of men, that you would be set apart as he is set apart. You were made to be priests and kings on this earth, and if you will regard him, he will regard you. If you will incline your voice, if you will lift up your voice to him, he will incline his ears to you. I love you. I pray you would live dangerously every single day of your life, because the days are evil. But you know what? Rejoice, because you were born for such a time as this. I'll talk to you soon.